Good evening and welcome back to Calgary City Council. We have just a few more people to hear from in our public hearing, and Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. On the roll, Councillor Ward. Councillor Wyness.
Here.
Here. Noted, Councillor Ward. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wyness. Councillor Ewell. Here. Councillor Atkinson. Here. Councillor Chabot. Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Dhaliwal.
Here.
Councillor Jameson.
Present.
Councillor Johnston.
Here.
Councillor Kelly.
Present.
Councillor McLean.
Here.
Councillor Pantazopoulos. Councillor
Here.
Schmidt. Oh, Councillor. Sorry, Councillor Pantazopoulos, are you remote?
I am remote, yes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Schmidt. Here. Thank you, Councillor Tyers.
Here.
And Mayor Farkas.
I'm here.
Thank you, Mayor.
Great, so I'm going to call some names from panels 55, 56, and 57. We'll attempt to fill from that, and then we'll open it up to some of the others. Do we have Maddie Carter on the line?
Yeah.
Great, Maddie, thank you. Please stand by. Do we have Sean Jensen? Devin Klingenberg? Now to 56, Brenna McLean? Claudia Hudspeth? Patricia Peck?
I'm on the line.
Thank you, Patricia. Please stand by. William Daniel? Scott Hawley? Thanks. Come on down, Scott. We'll have you here in person. Do we have Eva Torn-Thomas? Thiago Arujo? Hillary Wong? Susan Ridley? Peter Labastide? Now on to 58, Ken Moratidis? Ian Job? Great, come on down, Ian. Evgeny Zaromsky? Margaret Fong? Great, come on down, Margaret. Great, so that will be our first initial panel of 5. It'll be Maddie, then Patricia, then Scott, then Ian, then Margaret. Maddie, why don't you start us off? You have 5 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you. Hello, Mayor Farkas and council members. Thank you for the chance to speak today. I know it's been a lot for you guys, so I appreciate you sticking through. I ask that you vote against repealing blanket rezoning. The reason I'm here to speak today is twofold. First, I'm a renter and I've experienced the tumultuous nature of the Calgary housing market, especially after COVID when rent skyrocketed and the price of my own one-bedroom apartment suddenly went up by $600. Families are experiencing in the search for housing in this city. With several cuts to housing programs across the city from both providing diverse housing is a critical public priority, and repealing this decision would be an enormous step back, one that would be detrimental to many Calgarians. The people who will be affected the most by this decision may not have the ability to come to a hearing like this because they're busy at work, at school, or providing for their families. Elected officials such as yourselves have a duty to represent all constituents, including the ones who don't have the ability or the opportunity to advocate for themselves. Those who have spoken before me have emphasized the importance of making the right choice, even if it's not the most popular one. I urge you to have the courage to do that so that we can avoid catastrophic consequences in the future, just like the one we're currently experiencing with our water main. There are a lot of emotions that are floating around during this debate, but we need to set our feelings aside and consider the consequences of making an emotionally charged decision. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maddie. Please stay on the line in case there's questions. We'll go now to Patricia on 56, and then Scott after that.
Hello, Mayor Farkas, members of council. My name is Patty Peck, and I live in the community of Bowness. I'd like to start off by thanking council for being brave and reopening this can of worms. It shows a true commitment to getting things right for the city. As a starting point, I support the repeal of blanket rezoning, but I do wish the exclusions were less broad. The grandfathering of applications that are submitted is resulting in development we know is at high risk for being inappropriate, development that can't be undone. Can we not put a moratorium on approvals to reduce some of the development that's squeaking in under the wire? The city's intention to support some kind of scaling back of blanket rezoning has been clear for some time. It didn't come as a surprise, and it's not only regarding one or two parcels with poor intentions. Is it inconvenient for builders to have a moratorium on their applications? Sure, but is it detrimental? They can still apply for a land use change, and if RCG makes sense for the parcel and fits within good planning objectives, they'll likely still get to build. Or perhaps they can still make a profit by building a duplex instead. The risk of the repeal has been foreseeable since the day blanket rezoning was passed, and builders may have owned the lot before blanket rezoning even happened. What is the actual harm? Does that outweigh the risk of grandfathering poor planning outcomes? The white elephant squeaking under the wire isn't hypothetical. It's happening right by my house. A former R1 corner lot that was specifically discussed with planners during the ARP process in 2018 or 2017. It's so long ago, I can't remember when it happened. It now has a submission for 8 units with 8 secondary suites in the basement, even though it's in the flood fringe. It is a complex spot for traffic very close to the bottleneck one-lane Shoal-Ice Bridge. Pending construction of a 6-story apartment building is a block or so away. And 1 block farther than that, a 21-unit project that's across from MC1 zoning and a block from a school. Please put what little brakes we can on to help mitigate the avalanche of cumulative effects we know is coming. Bowness is a community that has been kicked to the curb by the rush of unplanned density. It's the poster child of an inclusive community that has absorbed a lot of increased density, but please allow for it to be planned. Builders will still build, but where it makes sense and not just where it's convenient for them. When we advocate for planning in Bowness, it's so there's parking for lower income families so that they can also drive their kids to hockey practice or band practice that isn't within walking distance, or so that delivery drivers can park their vital cars at home. It's so kids and seniors can cross a street that isn't backed up with congestion, and it's so that everyone can leave the neighborhood if it needs to be evacuated. Vulnerable populations deserve a well-planned community as well. A community that supports all types of housing because everybody brings something to the table, including R1 and R2, and that isn't where we've been heading. The Bowness ARP from 2018 or 2017 designated a lot of 6-story zoning along the Main Street corridor. I believe there's large-scale apartment buildings zoned by the former Sunnyside Garden Center property. There's redevelopment in the queue by the former Bonesian grocery store. The former R.B. Bennett school site is proposed for major multifamily development, and there's a multitude of potential RCG development everywhere in between. There's a lot of additional housing already zoned in Bowness prior to the blanket rezoning. Was already hard to figure out how the neighborhood was going to handle what was zoned. And then to potentially increase the density on every parcel on top of that is totally unsustainable. We're the perfect example of a neighborhood with unique geography due to its proximity to the Bow River, the Trans-Canada, and CP Rail. On top of our limited ability to enter and exit, there are flood policies in conflict with increased density. Approximately 11,000 people currently reside in Bowness, and there are 4 exits from the neighborhood, all being 1-lane roads. I'm quite curious to know how high that number would grow if everything already zoned prior to the blanket rezoning was built. I'm even more curious about what the maximum capacity of Bowness is before we choke. And when will we be unable to get in and out of the neighborhood? And how long will it take that before it results in the loss of a whole and healthy community? Please take this step back to planning with context. And while you're at it, throw in a study on the cumulative effects of zoning in Bowness. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. We'll now go to Scott on 56, then Ian on 58 afterwards.
Hello, my name is Scott Hawley. I'm here representing myself as a homeowner and a certified arborist with the ISA and as a qualified tree risk assessor. I am speaking in favor of the citywide zoning repeal because the current state of affairs is having a catastrophic impact on our city's tree canopy. This is twofold. This is canopy loss we've already seen, and canopy loss we will see in the coming years due to injury already done to mature trees. In 2024, Council mandated that the city should double the size of its urban canopy from 8% coverage to 16% coverage. I believe the statistic on the website says 9.6% canopy coverage currently. Unless we repeal these zoning laws, this is going to have the opposite effect, and we will be moving backwards. We are swiftly reducing our mature tree canopy at an unprecedented rate. And the trees being replanted are not commensurate with what is being cut down. It takes roughly 20 years for a tree to reach maturity and start contributing to the urban canopy. And, you know, row house after row house, HGO after HGO are being, you know, put right to the property line on every square foot they can, which is resulting in massive mature trees being cut down. 50, 60, 70-year-old American elms, spruce trees, trees that we will not see replaced in our lifetime. There is a land use bylaw that requires replacement trees, but this land use bylaw is frequently relaxed for developers or completely ignored. Often lots are just built with these massive homes all the way to the property line. Every square foot is either house or paved. I'm sure other people will talk about the strain that's going to put on our stormwater management system. But yeah, mature trees are simply being removed when they could have been retained because of the frantic pace of development. It's easier and faster for developers to remove a tree in their way than try and work around it. Developers have a profit motive to build the largest homes they can as fast as possible. Like I said, it frequently results in the loss of mature tree canopy. By removing trees at such a pace, we are doing two things. We are increasing the urban heat island effect, and you know, I think with climate change making each summer hotter than the last, we're going to need our mature canopy to keep our city livable. And trees that aren't immediately being removed will still die in the coming years because of damage done to them. And not only are they going to die, but it's going to create overlooked safety issues. Many of the trees next to development sites are going to wind up on top of those houses in years to come because of the root damage done. Root loss and root decay will lead to failures in coming years, I guarantee it. Often people only think about trees as what you see above ground. A tree's root system will spread out at least as far as the canopy does. Typically 8 times the trunk diameter is what we call the interior critical root zone. And once you start removing 30 to 40% of that, which only goes down about 2 or 3 feet and then just spreads out, they don't go all the way to China, a tree can be either killed over time or straight up become unsafe for retention. So like I said, with the root damage we've seen from excavation and paving, foundations, etc., we are going to see trees on top of houses in the next couple of years. I'm quickly running out of time. I want to clarify what I said earlier. I'm not representing the ISA, I'm just ISA certified. But yeah, it's a mature tree can take 2 to 3 years to completely die from injury. Trees are slow to react to change, but there's a lot of damage being done as we speak that we will see in the coming years. Instead of getting to 16% coverage, I think we're going to be down to maybe 6 in the next 2 to 3 years or lower. So.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
We'll go to Ian on 58 and then Margaret afterwards.
Great. I've got a visual that I'd like to put up at some point. Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Farkas and Council, for the opportunity to participate in today's public hearing. My name is Ian Job, and I'm here today on behalf of the Shawnee Evergreen Community Association. We are a small community association that represents residents in Shawnee Slopes and Evergreen Estates. We are south of Fish Creek Provincial Park and west of McLeod Trail at the Fish Creek Lacombe LRT station. Shawnee Slopes started building around the Shawnee Slopes golf course of the day in the early 1980s, ending in the 90s, with Evergreen Estates building between the 90s and the 2000s. In 2010, the golf course was sold to a developer, and Shawnee Park, the golf course infill development, started building in 2015. The Fish Creek LRT station opened in 2021. Being south of Fish Creek and inside the Ring Road, we're neither established inner city or a new community outside the Ring Road. So we're kind of a betweener. We describe ourselves as a suburban established community with significant development. We do not have a lot or an area plan that guides development in our community and adjacent areas. Some discussion was done around the development in the LRT area in 2012, coinciding with the golf course development, but nothing came out of it or done since then until June 2025, when CMLC announced that it is considering the Fish Creek LRT as a transit-oriented community development site. We are in favor of the repeal of the blanket rezoning bylaw and restoration of the bylaw 1P 2007 as it was prior to August 6, 24. We are not in favor of the amendments that have not been discussed and understood by residents. These include the current amendments to RCG and the motion, and perhaps other motions arising that are being contemplated by Council to be potentially put forward at the end of the public hearing portion of this meeting. As noted several times during these proceedings, trying to fix things on the fly just makes poor decisions on the past potentially worse. I'm sure I'm speaking, all speakers and those who've made submissions to this hearing appreciate the reasons why these are being proposed, but perhaps slowing down to speed up is ultimately a faster and more effective path forward. And I'll modify that slightly to say slowing down with a sense of urgency. I'd like to refer to our written submission on attachment 34 on page 7. With Calgary growing to 2 million in the near future, the Shawnee Slopes community is positioned to support a good portion of that growth. The 21 federal census forecasted plus 260% population increase from 2014 to 2042. And we know that census is out of date, so I'd suspect that number is low. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. We support housing growth and densification when it is thoughtful and informed. We support growth densification that is planned through local area planning, aligned with available infrastructure, amenities, green space, and mobility networks, developed collaboratively with affected communities, and responsive to neighborhood context and capacity. We support policies that respect existing communities and build trust through authentic engagement, and we support further development of underutilized municipal land along transit corridors as priority areas for growth. Now let's put those words into practice. Our community has been transformed by significant densification over the past decade. Development in this area includes a variety of built form from single detached homes, duplexes, townhome complexes, multiplex condo and rental housing, and six-story rental and six-story seniors facilities. So perhaps I can put my map up right now, please, the visual, please. You can see that's sort of the outline. You might recognize that photo. That's from the letter that went out to citizens, the orange, and Evergreen Estates and Shawnee Slopes is there. The blue represents the Shawnee Park infill of Shawnee Slopes. You can see it covers more than half of the geographical space of Shawnee Slopes. And then the green represents the transit-oriented community development that's going on. And I've done my best to provide the 600-meter TOD radius there. So since 2015, about 725 new units have been occupied. That's starting from 650 homes in 2015, so plus 725. 300 single detached, 425 multiplex. And over next year, we'll see another 600 units of multiplex six-story buildings coming online, including townhouse complex. Looking forward 5 to 10 years, there'll be additional build out of Shawnee Park, as well as the CMLC TOC development community. So I'm looking forward to attending the CML Speaker Series workshop on COC development April 27th at the Platform Calgary. Residents are increasingly concerned about density and delivering amenities and infrastructure. We're concerned about park space, school capacity, transportation. We continue to work with parks and more recently with the CML to work forward to make the best possible solution. So with that, I have a few more things to say, but I think that's my time.
And I think Councillor McLean's going to be going to you in just a
Okay.
moment here.
Thank
But before that, we'd like to hear from Margaret, please.
Yep.
Margaret, if you're still with us, you can go ahead, please.
Not necessarily going to speak to all this, but I'll be throwing a lot of acronyms at you and may not be aware of these organizations. So that's partially for my help too. Where is the timer? There, and it started. Okay, so my name is Margaret Fong, panel 58. I am a senior resident and owner of a bungalow with a basement suite in West Hillhurst, Ward 7, and I've been there for the last 40 years. I support repealing blanket upzoning without amendments. I live on the west side of Crowchild, and for 40 years, I've seen many well-maintained bungalows, several with basement suites, torn down and redeveloped into $1 to $3 million single-unit homes or attached, detached luxury townhomes. What was affordable housing in the area has been displaced by luxury living. The previous panelist that stated that if the developer is told that the maximum offset is X, you can be almost guaranteed that the builder will use those as their constraints. I'll give you an example. On the side of my block facing the small helicopter park, that was developed first. And now the other side of the block across the alley is being developed. As the lots on my side of the block have been developed, we have also built, the developers have also built the fences and the garages at the boundary line of the alley, which is now creating problems for the newer properties on the other side of the alley because they're finding it very difficult to maneuver their vehicles into their garages because of the tight alley nowadays. Oh, sorry. The major point of my presentation is I would like Council consider the original agenda of blanket rezoning. Would any of us be here or had two major hearings if it wasn't for the fact of the Federal Housing Fund and that though that money had strings attached, that it was not going to be given to us unless we put through blanket rezoning? After all, blanket rezoning has, so I'm saying that was a political decision to take that money and go into blanket rezoning. After all, blanket rezoning has not worked in the United States, New Zealand, Vancouver, and Edmonton. So let's follow the money and try and go down that rabbit hole of why that was such a major point of getting the money that we had to do blanket upzoning. And here we go down this rabbit hole, and I hope you will not consider this too conspiratorial, but all these groups exist. So Calgary is a member, and this is really more for the audience, is a member of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and Gaudette was a huge fan of it. She hosted the annual meeting back, I think, in 1924 or 23. That association is part of the ICLEI group, which is the International Council for Environmental Initiatives, and that is under the umbrella of the United Nations. What I'm saying is, are we doing blanket upzoning? Is it because it is a necessary state for 30-minute cities? We've already seen that infrastructure go in Edmonton. So, yeah, that's my question. Are we doing blanket up zoning because it gives us affordable housing? And I'm saying no, because it's been tried so many other places and it hasn't worked. But does it set us up for 30-minute cities? So Trudeau's gone. Gondek is gone. We don't have to pay attention to any of these global organizations anymore and do what's right for Calgarians, which is it was a fundamental issue that should have never been approved because it was political and not for the city population of Calgary. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with us. We'll go to questions for the
Mayor
panel.
Farkas.
Yes, may I ask who's speaking?
It's Dwight Bohm. I didn't hear my name called. My advice says that I'm part of panel 58.
Thank you, Dwight. We're not quite on you yet, so we just need to resolve our current panel first. We haven't assembled our next panel. Yeah.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we will go to questions for this panel. Councillor McLean, please.
I'm just going to call you Ian. We see each other pretty darn regular over the years. As you've stated, I think your community has done its part for density, but I'm going to let you finish off your whatever else you have.
We're still doing our part.
You still are. So I've got a couple questions, but please go ahead and finish whatever.
I just wanted to share a story. About a year ago now, March, we got together no less than 8 department leads or representations from the city department to do a walkabout in our community. And it was, again, to just have a boots on the ground kind of a meeting and discuss our challenges and the opportunities in front of us that were in the actual space around the LRT. It's amazing how 30 minutes goes and you don't get that much territory done with conversation. But I'd just like to offer that was a really worthwhile exercise. Everybody really enjoyed it. And we had representation also from the FCC planning representative as well. But we had planning, we had mobility, we had quite a few people there. So it was really worthwhile, and I'd like to see that cross-departmental work. And again, I'd just like to, a little shout out, it was organized by the COO office here, and shout out that this is a really good model forward. I know there are other CAs talked about it during this hearing that they've done that. But I'd also like to say, where are we? Our request to council is like to repeal the blanket rezoning bylaw, but then make decisions supporting a strategy forward to drive shared outcomes that we've all talked about today, that you have heard during this meeting, around growth and densification in the right way, in the right place. Recognizing that a blanket approach does not work for the diverse and unique character of the portfolio of established, middle-aged, as I'll call ours, and new communities in the city. So some suggestions we had going forward is that you urgently address meaningful land use types amendments, for example, RCG, and then translate those changes into plain language to ensure that the residents understand that what's being changed. And in fact, we've heard a lot about engagement over the last 3 or 4 days, and that's really important. I think we also heard a lot about planning process improvements to reduce costs to build products. I referenced last night's conversation. Increase engagement and planning innovation in communities through the Planning Liaison Program. I don't think we've heard that yet. That program that was just launched a couple months ago. And potentially expand that program to communities that beyond those that have current LAPs. And this maybe dovetails with the 4th recommendation, is to develop and implement a streamlined and genuine community area planning process. Could be community focused, and I think we talked about a little bit before that. Target 1-year process versus the current 3-year, and focus on the most necessary aspects in such a process for meaningful outcomes for that community. Again, focusing on density in the right place, the right way. Accelerate that local planning with communities and designate best nights for housing density. And you've heard this before, just like communities understand their local context best, and meaningful engagement leads us to better long-term planning outcomes for the entire city. So that's what I wanted to say, Dan.
Well, thank you, Ian. And thank all the community associations across the city. People like you and your wife, Lynn, they do so much work. And again, a shout out to administration as well. Having people like you engaged in asking for a tour when they were going to propose transitional housing or the new TOD sites in the cities. And that engagement is fantastic. So thank you to everybody for doing that.
Thank you.
And I think, well, a couple questions. I think you had some solutions, because I think the blanket approach where you've already had a community that's had a tremendous amount of density. There's other parts that would still fall underneath blanket rezoning, and so then there'd be even more added density. So do you agree maybe that's why you just can't treat every community the same in blanket? We should do a more targeted approach?
I think it should be a targeted approach because there are uniquenesses to each of the communities. And you've heard many people talk about, we've decided to select in this community because of this, this, and this. And I think it's important that we respect that and listen to the community. And then you can interface with the existing residential properties with the new. And I think we've heard about transitioning as well a lot, which is very important that people think about
Well,
that.
you mentioned RCG and LAPs, because you're way out before an LAP ever comes there. But if, like, say, an RGG, if you changed RCG to exclude townhouses, I think it was something Councillor Atkinson was talking about, row housing, and just maybe allow duplexes. Would that be acceptable compromise, or would you rather have it targeted again, just each one by one come to council, and then it has that individuality, so each land use maybe comes before
I think
council?
the context needs to be addressed. I mean, we're not without duplexes in our community. I mean,
Yeah.
pre-2015, we had three HOAs that are all duplex communities. So we have that in our, both the estates as well as in Shawnee Slopes.
Even that blanket approach would be.
Even without, that was pre-2015. And we had a full 3-4-story condo building in our
Let me ask, there's been a lot of discussion about density and parking and mobility and cars and stuff. So I know kind of the answer, but can you speak to what happens when you've got I don't know if you put that slide up there, where the golf course was and the amount of density that is there now. I know myself, I have constant calls from the businesses and residents not even being able to get down the road. So can you speak to that, just being able to not get around your neighborhoods?
Sure. I mean, this is the real challenge. I mean, I know we had a TIA that was done when the golf course was developed, and we haven't really heard too much about that, but you've got... Can you hear that okay? Does this work all right? You got McLeod Trail right here, you got the LRT station here, yes, James McKevitt, and then you've got over to the Fish Creek Boulevard, over to the left-hand side, which is the Ring Road. Yes, we've got a new traffic light there. That came in because of Shawnee Park, but there's also traffic lights here. So there is some thought as to how we can think about all the extra load that will be mobility, and that's not just cars. That's also walking mobility, walking, bicycling, and otherwise, to think about how people will access McLeod Trail north and south to get to the Ring Road and create those master planning. So that's one of the challenges that we want to build on the momentum from our walkabout, is get mobility to the table to talk about our interests and challenges. And it's been a bit of a tough go, but we'll get there to have that conversation.
Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Job. Someone that's on ground level with your insight is very much appreciated. Thanks again.
Thank you. That concludes this panel. We will work to assemble our next panel, starting with the remainder of panel 58. So again, thank you so much for being with us. So on 58, Dwight, do we still have you?
Yes, I'm on the phone here.
Great. You'll be first up. Give me just a moment here to assemble the remaining panelists.
Okay.
Now on 59, do we have Naomi Bakana, Alice Lamb, Julia Law, Brendan David, or Lauren Blackmore? Moving now to panel 60, do we have Marianne Schleineck, Lyndon Ward, Justine Ryder?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Justine. Please stand by. Mark Chambers, Robert Miller. Moving now to 61, Clay Israelson, Keely O'Neill, Alana DeBoer, Anne-Marie Lurie, or Susanita De Diago. Okay, moving now to 62, Stephen Shawcross, Sano Stanti, Craig Ryder.
Here.
All right, Craig, please stand by. Still on 62, Catherine Wazinski. Or Timothy Bacon. Okay, moving now to 63, Cole Sundberg. Alexia Minton. Carrie Elaine Little. Richard Warren. Or Rick Miller. Okay, now to 64, Natalie Odd. Vincent St. Pierre. Aitan Prakash. Chris Marchuk. Simcha Atanda. Or Simka, rather. Nope. All right, moving on to 65, Marin Huzak. Well, just make sure if that you're not on the line, make sure that please call, or rather, if you are called into the line, please be sure to mute if it's not your turn. We're just getting a little bit of crosstalk in the chamber here. Do we have Kathleen Douglas on 65? Jeremy Wong? James Sterling? Or Maria Virginia Castillo-Toro? All right, on 66, Peter Dormar. '66, Sonia Johnson. Dewange Cody. Or Kira Ostrasser.
This is Alexa Minton.
Alexa, which panel were you on again?
Oh my gosh.
63, I believe, right? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Alexia, please stand by.
Certainly.
And 67, I believe we have Larry Heather with us. Great. Come on and approach, Larry. All right, so this will be our panel. We have Dwight, Justine, Craig, Alexia, then Larry. So why don't we start off with Dwight? You have 5 minutes, please, sir.
Thank you. My name's Dwight Bowman. I'm a resident of Ward 1, and I'm representing myself. So let me start by saying my feeling is that the blanket rezoning bylaw has actually turned out to be the authoritarian free-for-all zoning bylaw. And based on the testimonies of many others, it would seem I'm not the only one that feels that way. So for the record, let me confirm I support the repeal of the blanket rezoning bylaw, period, full stop. First of all, let me start out with the fact that despite what we've heard here, there is no longer an availability or affordability crisis in Calgary, either in terms of inventory of rental units or homes for sale. And here's the facts about that. Rental vacancies in Calgary have increased from 1.4% in 2023 to 5.8% as of December 31st, 2025, 74% higher than the national average. The results of that, rental vacancies are well above demand, and the average rent has dropped from $1,721 to $1,450 from January 24th to January 26th, which is a whopping 16% reduction. Now let's switch to home sales. January 26th, new listings, 2,785. Sales, 1,235 units. Inventory of listings, 4,391. New listings, 225% above sales. Inventory, 356% above sales. Price down, 4.7% January 2026 versus the prior year. So although the affordability issue is over, let's completely dismiss the whopper. We are being told that all of these multifamily building units are about affordability. As confirmed by CMHC, specific to the Calgary market, rezoning has not been about producing more affordable homes, as the majority are in the higher price brackets. And that's from CMHC. So the net effect is this has been really, really great for the builders, but horrible for so many homeowners. Point number 2, blanking rezoning for all development has no business being injected into established areas without careful and very defined criteria, especially in the areas that were zoned single family with a smattering of single-story duplexes. Ripley's, believe it or not, I invite every single one of you to come with me for a drive, and I will show you property after property now being built over 30-foot high monoliths that are next to a bungalow or single-story duplex that has a 12 to 14-foot height at its peak. Building up and out does not play well with single-story homes. Please accept that as the absolute truth. You'll likely recall the fellow that talked about the 11-unit complex replacing a single-family home. That's with 2 people, that's on average 20 more cars that need parking spots and much more water pushed into an older set of pipes. If 2 people per household, that is an extra 1.68 million liters of water per year that has to go through those pipes. And then we've got the parking issues, and yes, I got tired of calling the parking authority and have a call taker tell me that it'll take about 7 weeks before they did anything about an illegally parked car. So I sold my home, and I've now moved to a controlled neighborhood. That's how bad it got. Add in noise, much less green space and trees, more traffic, which is unfortunately evidenced by the children and other people that are being ran over in crosswalks, and then you get the real picture. Now let's talk about the infrastructure like our water pipes. Using the fourplex example I already talked about, you're quadrupling the water required for a single plot of land.
Can you turn that back on, but with no voice?
Thank you. Let's make sure that everyone besides Dwight is muted, please.
Yeah, okay, so please, if I could just reclaim a few seconds, because this is important. How can you do that if you're not increasing pipe capacity? You increase water pressure by adding booster pumps. So you can force more water through a fixed diameter pipe. As pressure velocity rises, friction increases, which can cause steels and pipes to wear prematurely and burst. And if you're trying to move the water on an incline, the need for increased pressure goes up exponentially. Does this sound familiar? Do you think maybe adding thousands of homes to the North Hill in Calgary without adding pipe capacity caused the mess that we're in today? I believe with certainty many bad decisions have been made, and one of the doozies is adding capacity to a water system without improving the supporting infrastructure. And the cost of that? Apparently it's about $600 million. That's exactly
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dwight. Unfortunately, you're at time, but please stay on the line in case there may be questions.
Yeah, Mayor Parker, so if I could just finish off that one last sentence.
Please do.
That's exactly what happens when you try to put 10 pounds of sausage in a 5-pound casing. Presto, you turn a 100-year pipeline into a 50-year pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. We'll move now to Justine on panel 60, please.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor and members of Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Justine Ryder, and I'm a resident of Ward 11. I'm speaking as a lifetime Calgarian with my strong support for a full repeal of the citywide rezoning bylaw and to respectfully request that Council implement a pause on approvals enabled by this bylaw while the repeal process is under consideration. I am here today on behalf of myself and my family, especially my 2 young daughters who I hope one day have the opportunity to raise their families in a community like ours. In my 40 years as a Calgarian, I've had the opportunity to live in many different communities and housing types across the city. When my husband and I had children, we made a deliberate decision to move from a well-planned, mixed-density neighborhood into a primarily single-family community because it better matched the environment we wanted to raise our family in. That choice reflects something many Calgarians value, the ability to select a neighborhood that fits their stage of life and needs. A blanket, one-size-fits-all policy like the current RCG framework undermines that choice and threatens the livability of established communities by allowing unmanaged redevelopment without thoughtful local planning. Calgary is a large and diverse city with neighborhoods that vary significantly in infrastructure, design, and character, and applying a single zoning approach across all communities is not appropriate for a city of this size and complexity. Residents should be able to expect both neighborhood diversity and carefully planned development that respects the unique context of each community. During the original public hearing on this issue, Calgarians showed up in unprecedented numbers. Over 70% of oral submissions and nearly 90% of written submissions were not in favor of this change. Residents invested significant time and energy to participate in the democratic process, and the message was clear. Calgarians had serious concerns with blanket upzoning. The public has already spoken, and that voice deserves to be heard and respected this time around. This policy was introduced as a shortcut to affordability, but it has not delivered on that promise. Instead, it has contributed to devalued adjacent properties, increased speculation, and growing pressure on infrastructure in neighborhoods that were never designed for unmanaged redevelopment. For most families, purchasing a home is the largest investment they will ever make. Residents should be able to have reasonable confidence that their investment, their privacy, and their community will be protected through thoughtful and predictable planning. Many Calgarians now feel uncertainty about what could be built next door, how their property may be affected, and whether neighborhood character will be preserved. This has understandably led to growing concern and a decline in trust in the planning process. I think we all agree that Calgary absolutely needs more housing, and most residents understand that growth and thoughtful density are part of the solution. But growth must be planned with communities, not around them. A sweeping citywide zoning change without broad public support is not a sustainable path forward. In my opinion, the most constructive next step is to return to a stable and well-understood foundation by restoring the land designations that Calgarians have relied on for decades. From a neutral starting point, Council can work with residents to develop a responsible, community-supported plan to increase density while preserving the qualities that make Calgary's neighborhoods livable. I respectfully urge Council to pause approvals under the current bylaw and vote in favor of a full repeal. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. We're going to go now to Craig on 62 and then Alexia after that. Please go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Craig Ryder, and I am here to express my opposition to blanket rezoning and my full support for the full repeal of blanket rezoning. I strongly feel that blanket rezoning, one-size-fits-all, grossly oversimplifies an important and complex issue in this city. It prioritizes haphazard densification over long-term community well-being. A key part of the charm and enjoyment that I enjoy in my community of Lakeview in Ward 11 is that it offers a reasonable balance of busy city living while still providing some tranquility and privacy. The previous council did not campaign on and did not allow a plebiscite on blanket rezoning, which was deeply concerning given the significance of the proposed change. The information sessions on blanket rezoning that the city provided in 2024 were very one-sided in my opinion. At the information session that I went to, the supposed pros to blanket rezoning were well communicated, while the cons to blanket rezoning were nowhere to be found. The city planner that I spoke with appeared closed off to other viewpoints on blanket rezoning. This top-down approach to rezoning has bred resentment, eroded trust, and alienated many of us directly impacted by such sweeping zoning changes. The previous councillor for Ward 11 was unfortunately well known in our ward for not listening to her constituents and instead seemed to follow her own
Craig,
ideology.
I'm just going to jump in, and through the course of the public hearing, I've been asking the presenters not to engage in personal commentary about any individuals. If we can just stay focused on the issue at hand, that'd be appreciated.
Sure. Can I comment on council in general, the previous council?
I'd rather not anything of a personal nature. You can comment on the decision that was made, but I'd ask just for decorum's purposes not to cast aspersions about motivation or otherwise denigrate any individual or a group.
Okay. Densification requires a more targeted, context-sensitive approach that includes honest and meaningful engagement with communities and careful consideration for key elements such as transit access, traffic, parking adequacy, green spaces, and school capacities, to name a few. Development of new communities on the city's periphery is also required, in my opinion. These new neighborhoods can be planned with the necessary infrastructure from the start, rather than forcing incompatible multi-unit buildings into established single-family areas with limited infrastructure. I strongly urge this council to be more rational and sensible than the previous council that voted for blanket rezoning. And please, please listen to your constituents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Craig. Please stay on the line. We'll go now to Alexia on 63, and then afterwards we'll have Larry here in the chamber. Please go ahead, Alexia.
Okay. Mayor Farkas, and members of City Council, my name is Alexa Minton, and I reside in Ward 11. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today in support of full repeal of blanket rezoning. I live in the community of Haysboro, one of the first planned communities in Calgary. I previously spoke during the citywide rezoning process that was approved by the former council in May 2024, and what I learned from that experience is that I was not alone. Residents from communities across Calgary came forward to say the same thing. One size does not fit all. Over the past 2 years, I've taken time to educate myself. I joined my community association board, learned more about planning. I attended every available meeting related to planning, the local area plans, and the proposed changes to them. I participated in city-led sessions, workshops hosted by the Calgary Federation of Calgary Communities, and virtual planning meetings. I asked questions of planners, city employees, presenters, and fellow residents. At one of those meetings, I listened to my city councilor tell residents that we were not experts in planning, and that was my first aha moment, because who understands a community better than the people who live there? Residents are the ones who walk, bike, drive their neighborhoods every day. They know the traffic patterns, school drop-off and pick-up times, which streets become congested, and when extra time is needed just to exit the community. They know their neighbors, how the alleys are used, where the children play, and how people move through the shared spaces. That lived experience matters, and it should matter in planning decisions. What I have seen since blanket rezoning was introduced is nothing short of a tsunami of HGO developments. Developers, often from out of province, are purchasing properties from homeowners who are planning to downsize. Meanwhile, communication from the Calgary City Planning Department has been minimal. Community residents show up at community association board meetings angry, confused, and frightened, asking, how did this happen? How could this happen to us? And what are we supposed to do now? There is not a single person who bought a bungalow expecting a 3-story HGO built right up against their property line with 8 to 10 units, which have no trees, no green space, and no parking. That is not thoughtful planning. That is a disruption imposed without consideration. Sorry, my page stuck together. My next aha moment came after a full year of writing letters during the city's approval process. I explained why an HGO was not appropriate next door to a daycare, across the street from another proposed HGO, within 100 feet of a busy, controlled intersection, and near a church. During a session with city planners, I was told that if every item on the checklist was met, the development could be approved. That raised serious concern for me. Where's the thoughtful contextual planning? Where are the questions like, does the community actually need multiplex housing when it already has apartments, condos, 3 affordable housing projects underway with 1,400 units? Who can realistically afford the HGOs when their prices start in the low 600s? 600,000, sorry. If affordability and sustainability were truly the goals, development would be focused along LRT lines and near transit stations, places where residents do not need to rely on cars. Between Heritage and Southland LRT stations alone, there are grocery stores, schools, recreation facilities, a pool, a public library, and the Rockview Hospital. That is where density makes sense. And that brings me to my final realization, one that perhaps I always knew. Blanket rezoning was never really about affordable housing. It was about profit and what developers gain from maximizing builds and what the city gains from permits and tax revenue. So I ask you, what do existing communities gain? And that is where I struggle to find an answer. I urge the council to repeal blanket rezoning and return to thoughtful community-based planning, planning that respects residents, reflects neighborhood realities, and truly serves long-term interests of Calgary. You have an opportunity to reset the outcomes and impacts of blanket rezoning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. We'll now go to Larry here in the chamber, please, from 67.
Good evening. I'm from the community of Ward 11, and I would like to there's been such a marvelous display of intelligence and common sense by the people phoning in. I don't have a lot of facts and figures to give you. Quote, beware of him who creates a crisis and then proffers with a ready-made solution. So that is MBC. That's the Accelerator Fund. Management by crisis, employed frequently by the previous two administrations. I speak today of underlying factors that can eventually overturn a repeal of this blanket zoning, and I want it overturned, and make this public hearing null and void. The housing crisis is a sudden result of improvident flooding of immigrant entries with federal government subsidies of up to $3,200 a month, without the accompanying organic growth of the economy or the infrastructure. So, in land matters, the fundamental question to ask is who owns the globe, the planet? And it's answered in Psalm 24:1, and it says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. We are stewards of something that was given to us as a gift. That's the base offering. Now, a key insight from the time of Solomonic wisdom. Why are one detached communities? Quote, 1 Kings 4:25. During Solomon's lifetime, Judah and Israel from Dan to Beersheba lived in safety under their own vine and fig tree. So we see here Solomon's optimal land zoning strategy that was applicable to his whole kingdom. Every family with its own land, a sphere of sovereignty over which they had control. They lived in safety because there was ownership title of property, which is not the common land, and could not be intruded upon without notice or permission. Therein lies the basis for community stability, which provides a refuge from public disorder and chaos, such as flowing from nighttime LRT stations. So I'll skip some. My advice to you today, it is not advisable to send city councilors by rapid transit down to that historical avenue named Pitchforks and Torches. Let me describe what I've observed. The council, number one, majority votes, such as the previous regime, is on an outrageous land use totally against the public hearing majority. Second, the public reacts with voracious force. A new hearing is allowed, making sure that hundreds first of applications are allowed to enter into the system first. The administration backs off a little ways, and the opposition might diminish. But because the majority of admin are hired from the University of Calgary or some such left central planning entity, they look for a new language and subtle disguised costumes that results in a directional reset back to the original, what I would call Gondekism. The only answer, a mass purge of such radicals from the city's structure, especially DEIers. How did we get here? Oh, that's it. The previous term of office conveniently appeared when we integrated the voting machines. ES&S, my moniker, Easy Solutions for Subversion. Let us now look at the temptation-laden medicine wagon of the Acceleration Fund. The front of the wagon is a giant, delicious, dangling apple of mass dollars for housing, a solution to the intentional crisis, realizing, of course, that it is not tax-funded money, but dollar credits spun out of an endless printing press, which leads to a precipitous devaluation of each dollar unit. What most do not observe in the back end of the wagon is PM Glitter Socks and now PM Banker Box, morally refracted practitioners of hidden benefits for schemed cooperation of the front-end bottle of elixir. This elixir, the miracle to the housing crisis. A distemper shot for an educated but raving citizenry. Oh, look at all the money we're going to get.
Thank you very much, sir. You're just at time.
Last sentence. David Duckworth, see you later. alligator.
Stop, please. All right, we had called in assembling this panel Vincent St. Pierre, but I saw Vincent, you had just walked in a second after I'd called your name. So please approach. We're going to sneak you in as our sixth panelist. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Quick request, can I get my slides?
Yeah, give us just a moment. I think I had surprised the clerks by calling upon you. But the amazing team is ready for you.
Alrighty then. Hopefully the clerk's team is trigger ready to jump slide to slide. Next slide. So my name is Vincent St. Pierre. I am a board member and volunteer with the Downtown Core Neighborhood Association. Next slide. Please vote against repeal. This may sound newsworthy to you because we're a community association, so you've probably heard from more than a couple who've shared their grievances with policy. Next slide. Let me tell you about my neighborhood. Next slide. So we run events. We engage with folks throughout the neighborhood community. We had a Learn to Play Cricket event last year. We have regular coffees, and last week we gathered about 20 neighbors to talk about the Green Line. Next slide. We also do Jane's walks. You might be able to see the councillor for Ward 7's elbow, I think. He joined us for a walk last year with our community volunteer wrangler and chief, leader, Dr. Paul Ferry. And you can see right up in the top right our gathering to watch for the 25th anniversary of Way Downtown, where we watched a film with the director of the film, actually, and listened to a panel about how we shape our city and how we have those core conversations about how we not only live, play, and work together to make a even better city around us. Next slide. So I volunteer with the Downtown Core Neighborhood Association, seniors, youth, advocates from here for short term, but also long term. We're about 8,500 plus residents. We cut through the downtown in the sub-district that is typically called commercial core. 1 in 10 are under the age of 14. I dare you to walk around the core and point out how many spots you can actually pick a park or a spot or green space for someone to, say, play in if they're under the age of 14, where they don't have to pay to exist. Next slide. Our demographics are somewhat different than the rest of the city, more weighted towards the younger crowd, the 20s to the 35s. Next slide. Primarily renters, but also owners too. Next slide. But core fact amongst that community profile from the city of Calgary, 36% of households spend 30% or more of their total income on housing. You probably remember the last couple speakers, some of them said there's no affordability crisis. There's an affordability crisis because I feel like I'm living it right now because my rent since 2021 has gone up 33 points. So there's an affordability crisis. There are costs that are increasing on my fellow citizens and neighbors, and we feel the pinch the most here in downtown core. Next slide. And those stats are from 2021. So next slide. There's been COVID-19, record inflation, an ongoing spike in rental costs, and my rant, since I'm giving the presentation, I can slip my own rent into there, the 33-point increase that I faced since 2021. And for new tenants coming into my building for a 6-month tenancy, they're chipping in $2,200. So I don't know where the one previous speaker was coming from saying that there was a full 16-point decrease, because I have not felt it, I have not seen it, and neither has my community. Next slide. According to the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation, we need about 4.8 million more homes, and that's by 2035. Next slide. There's this really cool graph. It's dedicated just to us on the CMHC website. I encourage you to see it. We're not going to start to approach historic affordability or increasing affordability unless there's significant changes. Next slide. Every event we've hosted, every engagement we've done, every survey we've put out, every chat that we've had in the neighborhood, both this past year and years prior since our founding 5 years ago, housing affordability and affordability writ general has been a core issue of ours. We've presented during the Affordability Task Force where they presented a whole host of items. Next slide. You can see the presentation there in my smiling face. Next slide. We got about 39 recommendations that came from that. I invite you to look back at those recommendations. See what's been missed, see what's been added. I know this council, and with 2 seconds remaining, I am out of time. Fiddlesticks. But I leave these open questions with you, kind councillors. Please consider the perspective shared. Next slide. And a vote against repeal. Next slide.
Thank you so much for being here, Vincent. We are concluded with this panel. At this stage, I'm going to ask is there anyone that is here with us at City Hall that we missed between panels 1 through 67? All right, I'm counting 4 individuals here. I'd ask that you please approach, and then we'll have you as the first 4 on our panel. I will go to the first person that I recognize on the line. Is there anyone on the line that we missed between panels 1 and 67?
My name's Kathleen Douglas. Do you have me down there, sir?
Kathleen, I hear you. Which panel were you on? 65, I believe.
I believe I was on 65.
Okay, perfect. Please stand by, Kathleen. We're going to hear from the 4 people that we have in person here, and then we're going to go to you. So probably just in the order that you're there, if you don't mind introducing yourself, sharing your name, which panel number you were on, and each of you will have 5 minutes. Thank you so much for your patience tonight.
Hi, I'm Hillary Wong. I was on panel 57. Good evening, Mayor Farkas and councillors. Thank you for your time. I'm speaking today as a private citizen to express my opposition to the motion to repeal citywide rezoning. My name is Hillary Wong, and I have been a resident of Calgary for 9 years. My husband and I own a single detached home in Ogden, a neighborhood that is primarily made up of single-family homes and was zoned for single-family residential when we bought it. We are lucky to have our home and worked hard to save the money we needed to buy it. But when we moved in, we did not assume that existing zoning was a promise that the neighborhood would stay the same forever. We live in a city, which means we live next to other people, and living next to other people means compromise, and it means change. While we love the character of our neighborhood, the source of that character is not the houses that were built there 50 years ago. It's the individual Calgarians that make the neighborhood their home today. Our neighbor across the street is transforming his front yard into a sculpture garden with native plants. That's his choice to make on his property, just as others might opt for art, gardens, signs, or just a simple grass lawn. I don't get a say in what sculptures I look at when I'm having coffee in the morning, and that's okay. People are allowed to be different, and that's what gives our neighborhood character. I think a city that embraces change and diversity is what makes it an interesting place to live. Really, I just want there to be enough people living in Ogden for me to have a coffee shop and a bakery that I can walk to. We've heard arguments about parking, shadowing, and lot coverage, but please weigh those against seniors choosing between rent or groceries, young graduates leaving the city over the cost of living, and how desperate so many people are just to have a place to call home. Since moving to Calgary, I have worked as an engineer in the solid waste industry. I have worked on, managed, and overseen the construction of at least 20 significant infrastructure projects, ranging from $1 to $4 million, coordinating a variety of earthworks, underground, and civil contractors. If I've learned one thing from my time as a project manager, it's that time is money. For different reasons, often outside their control, my clients have had to delay their projects. The result is that the cost of the project will increase substantially. RCG zoning allows for time savings, which in turn allows for cost savings for new housing. The time-related cost of capital should not be underestimated. Adding months-long, parcel-by-parcel rezoning process to housing development adds administrative, staffing, and financing costs to a project, as well as annual cost escalation in construction. Removing this rezoning process does not remove community input, which still occurs through the notice posting portion of the development permit process. It simply removes one layer of regulatory delay at a time when getting more housing built more quickly and more cost effectively is crucial. I think we all know people whose lives have been impacted by the housing crisis in this city. Our friends who both work full-time and have started a family in Calgary were pushed out of their neighborhood to the other side of the city because they could no longer afford rent where they lived. One of my favorite annual traditions is participating in the Christmas bird count. And last year, the coordinator was almost forced to leave the city due to the difficulty of finding housing. Through these public hearings, we've heard people who might move in to fourplexes and secondary suites called every name in the book, from drifters to transients to packs of animals. Personally, I would prefer to think of them as friends and neighbors who make this city such a great place to live. To close, I would like to share a quote from a book called Little Fires Everywhere. I think you can't imagine why anyone would choose a different life from the one you've got. Why anyone might want something other than a big house with a big lawn, a fancy car, a job in an office. Why anyone would choose anything different than what you would choose. So, to the mayor and councillors and my neighbors, I invite you to imagine someone choosing something different than what you would choose, and a future that, while it may look different from your past, is no less valuable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. We'll go to the next person in the chamber here with us. Please approach.
Hi, Brenna. I was on 56. Hi, Council. How are you holding up? Hopefully good. This is quite the marathon and not the fun TV kind, so thank you for listening. I know you've heard from experts and stakeholders at many levels throughout this marathon. I'm sure that speaking to facts and figures wouldn't be telling you anything new. So my tack today is to speak to what I hope for as a citizen who's invested her future in this city. You'll have to let me know if it's effective. So me and my husband bought our first house a couple of years ago in Ward 9 in a classic Calgary 50s, 60s suburb of sprawling bungalows. I've even looked at the archive photos in the library from when our neighborhood was built. Comparing these images to now, it's like a really hard game of spot the difference. It's a good visual of how little our neighborhood has changed in 60 years. Buying almost feels unreal these days. I feel very privileged. But as the reality of a mortgage has brought my feet back to the ground, I've realized just how much the city informs and is an extension of our home. How a home's value is not just financial, but it's informed by all of the day-to-day practicalities and challenges of interacting with the city around it. And more than that, I've realized that my personal prospects are now very much so tied to the city, which has manifested as some concerns I have for the low density of Calgary. I'm worried about the city's ability to afford itself, to afford to continue offering the reliable utilities we kind of take for granted. Turning on our taps, getting our electricity, it's a blind spot for us. We just get it. It's world class, along with our world-class public services that I want to see maintained and improved and dispersed for all Calgarians, not just for those of us who live in the older neighborhoods who get to stop on the way home at the library because it's conveniently on our transit route. And you know, the fabric of this city is what makes my house feel like a place to live, not just a property or its property lines. I ask that City Council consider the health of the city as a whole to support the kind of bold densification we need in order to help balance the cost of our services against our increasing populations. I would ask that we keep the blanket rezoning. Now, zooming back into my lovely little neighborhood of 50s, 60s bungalows. As one speaker pointed out on day one, if we love something, we should want to share it. And I love Calgary, I love my new neighborhood, and I feel part of the fabric, and I hope to share it. I'd be happy to see duplexes, fourplexes, sixplexes, all the plexes. Low rises, mid rises, let's rise to the occasion. It would certainly refresh my street with new housing opportunities, as well as make my spot the difference game a whole lot easier. But I understand the concerns of my fellow Calgarians. After all, I did choose a detached home for myself. But as I've heard people say throughout this hearing, one size doesn't fit all. I share this sentiment, but maybe not with the same intent. I would argue that blanket rezoning allows for the kind of diverse housing that we need to support a one-size-doesn't-fit-all population, a population that should get the opportunity to invest in a house, condo, or apartment that suits them too. We should all get to be part of the fabric of the city. So I'm here to express hope that we stop pushing our new neighbors to the other side of Stony or putting them into high-rises so that we can block our view of the freeways and the noise, but that we think about building our city in a way that's sustainable, that supports the services that make our city a place to live. I really appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. We'll ask our next presenter to please approach.
Hi, my name is Austin Morris, and I'm from panel 47, and I'm a resident of Ward 8. Thank you to City Council for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to ask you to vote no on repealing citywide rezoning. I moved to the city in 2019 and quickly fell in love with it. I found a great apartment with easy access to services, public transit, and beautiful parks just a couple of blocks away. It felt like home. In 2023, I received a substantial rent increase. It was difficult, but I stayed. I liked my community, and I was willing to make it work. Then, in early 2024, I received another significant increase. This time, one I simply could not afford. I had no choice but to move. In the process of moving out, one of the 2 elevators in my building was out of service. As I rode the remaining one down, it had to stop at nearly every floor. At some of the stops, we met a neighbor. One by one, all of us discovered that nearly everyone on that elevator was in the exact same situation, moving out because they could no longer afford the rent. They wanted to stay, but were being pushed out, left searching for cheaper options that were increasingly hard to find. It has been mentioned earlier in a panel that our rents are now stabilized and our prices are good. Apartments are offering discounts and they are competing against each other. So I guess we don't need rezoning anymore. However, our city is projected to reach nearly 2 million people within the next 5 to 10 years. We need to continue to increase housing supply because more supply in housing drives down and stabilizes prices across the board. We cannot let off the gas pedal in building housing, or else we will be right back to where we are with the same housing issues we had in 2024. However, we also cannot fix the cost of housing through just new communities and sprawl alone. We already have a strong foundation of other options. We are revitalizing downtown buildings into residential units, building new apartment complexes, communities across the city. But another important part of that foundation is that we're able to continue to offer diverse middle housing options within our city that densifies our existing communities equitably. This diverse housing supply means young people like myself who one day want to be able to own their own home can choose to live in a variety of neighborhoods and have a variety of housing types available to those neighborhoods that are affordable with access to walkable streets, local services, and the kind of community life we all deserve. I urge this council, please vote no on repealing citywide rezoning. My former neighbors that I met on that elevator, the ones who were forced to move out, are counting on you to keep our city affordable. Thank you again to the mayor, city council, and administration for your time.
Thank you very much. We'll ask our next speaker to please approach. Please let us know your name.
I'm Evgeny Zhiromsky from panel 58. I emailed slides to public submission this morning. Can I please have them displayed?
Could you just repeat your name?
Evgeny Zhiromsky from panel 58.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Please go ahead.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Evgeny Zhiromsky. I live in the community of Windsor Park in Ward 11. I'm in favor of the motion to repeal blanket rezoning. I'm in favor of changing RCG district rules, but it needs to be done only after public consultation and expert review, not as a last-minute attachment to the main repeal motion. For the past 2 years, I've been fighting a development permit to install a 9-unit row house next to my home. If built, it will look like this. The proposed RCG structure is a 3-story, 9-unit massive building that spans the entire length of a single residential lot. It sits on with a 0 rear setback. Slide 2, please. It will completely block my view lines to the east. 4 of 9 units of this building will face my property. They will not have a street or avenue entrance. These 4 doors will also double as entrances to the 4 main units upstairs, so people from 8 dwelling units will use these 4 doors to enter and exit the building as they are closest to the garage door and 9 garbage and recycling bins at my fence line. That's impact and compatibility. So if this project gets built, my home will lose value, and neither the developer nor the city are in a rush to offer me compensation for the loss of home value. This project is unacceptable to me and my family, and this would be unacceptable to any single-family homeowner in Calgary if this was built next to them, including the developer and even SDAB board members and development authority officials who have been helping the developer to defeat my appeal of this development permit. Slide 3, please. I'm in favor of repealing the blanket rezoning bylaw because in my opinion, it has not achieved any of its stated goals, which were increase the supply of housing to meet demand, streamline planning approval process, improve housing affordability, and develop residential grade-oriented contextual infills, RCGs, that will look like this on the city brochure from 2024. Sadly, after almost 2 years of this bylaw in effect, the reality is very different. For example, streamlining planning approval process. There's a 300% increase in the subdivision and development appeal board appeals of RCG development permits. The appeal board is backed up for months. There's overwhelming opposition to RCG development, and the affected homeowners fight the unwanted development permits, even though it's an unfair and a one-sided fight. The added step of appeal board appeals adds several months to the development permit approval process. In case of my development permit appeal, I've been pausing this RCG development for almost 2 years. I will continue to oppose it until the developer realizes that I'm a stakeholder too, and he must take into account impact and compatibility as per land use bylaw section 35D. Improve housing affordability, slide 4, please. Typical RCG row house is listed for upwards of $750,000. The example on the slide is a 1,500 square foot unit. It is sold for more than a price of a larger single-family home in new communities. It is narrow, dark, and unsuitable for families or seniors or people with disabilities because it has 3 sets of stairs just to get from one room to another, and barely any amenity space outside. Slide 5, please. Another affordability example on my street is this row house. It's a professionally operated full-time Airbnb, so it's a 4-unit hotel. Each of the 4 rows house units rents for upwards of $300 per night. Slide 6, please. Develop RCG infills that would look like this on the city brochure from 2024. And slide 7, please. But in reality, they look like this. Next slide, please. Or like this. These buildings are monsters. They have anywhere from 8 to 12 dwelling units on a single residential lot. They're excessively massive and tall. They block view lines. They introduce excessive density in low-density neighborhoods. They create problems with excessive pedestrian and vehicle traffic, insufficient crowded parking quantity, positioning, management of garbage and recycling bins. The list of problems goes on and on. Slide 9, please. So in other words, contrary to Calgary Municipal Development Plan Section 225, these developments are not sensitive, compatible, and complementary to the existing physical pattern and the character of neighborhoods. Next slide, please. Proposed RCG district rule changes. The proposed changes to RCG district rules is a long overdue step in the right direction, but it needs more scrutiny. During the 24 blanket zoning hearings, was a presentation by Mr. Robert Merchant, a professional architect and former SDAB board member and decision writer, and he made several important points that apply, and I'm going to repeat them. New district rules or changes to district rules must be studied and tested by independent architectural or construction experts. Their findings must be made public and discussed before any RCG district rule changes are put to a council vote. Neither the public nor council members may know or understand the limits, implications, and unintended consequences of the proposed RCG district rule changes the developers will find and exploit. If such review and testing is not done, developers will come up with new, incompatible designs that will again clash with the character, physical pattern, existing scale of build form of the neighborhoods, and the RCG problem will not go away. Not counting basement suites towards low density is a joke. Having RCG units not facing a street or avenue, but the adjacent property instead is a problem of impact and compatibility. So please commission and publish a review and testing of proposed changes to the RCG district rules by an independent expert.
Unfortunately, you're just at time, but thank you so much for being here. Please stay close. We will now go to Kathleen Douglas, please, to round off the panel.
Good evening. Thank you for making your day so long for all of us. My name is Kathleen Douglas, and I'm registered on panel 65. I reside in Zone 1 across from Bonez Park on the first street created in our historical, beautiful Bonez community. I'd like to express my strong support in favor for the proposed rezoning repeal. I was born in Calgary and grew up in Bonez, witnessing neighborhood changes through the years, whereby many single-family homes were replaced with multifamily units even while I was growing up. Many of these large buildings are owned by landlords that have not kept their properties up in good condition. I'm now concerned that many of the new builds coming into the community will end up in similar conditions with years to come. Life took me away from Bonez roots for several years, but my husband and I invested in this property we presently live in over 20 years ago, so we could now return and enjoy the community. There are several reasons why blanket zoning harms our communities, which I know many people during this meeting have expressed. Several presenters have had viable suggestions, and I'm in favor of community planning like Lake Bonavista did versus blanket zoning. Bonez was meant to be a village in the valley, but I am afraid that our little village is being ignored when it comes to planning within the city of Calgary. Personally, my family would be affected by a proposed development next to us, which is still an empty hole, unkept, unsafe lot. The proposed two buildings on a 50 by 120 mid-street lot would increase foot traffic dramatically. The proposed buildings do not fit into the character of the neighborhood. The setback would significantly encroach on my family's privacy and views, as our established modest bungalow has windows that would be blocked by the build. Not to mention creating noise from foot traffic between the buildings and vehicle traffic in the alleyway and front street. I heard one presenter before this council state that if she heard one more complaint about trash bins and parking regulations, she would scream. Well, try living next to unkept properties with no off-street parking and trash bins rolling around the alleyways sideways because renters don't care. Half a parking stall per unit is unrealistic and unsecure. Outside bike storage will not work for the true cyclists that invest thousands of dollars in a bike. Storage in a home is like gold, but parking is platinum. On the proposed rezoning repeal map on the city website, it shows that the lot located at 8919 48th Avenue Northwest would be exempt from this process. I must emphasize that 8919 48th Avenue Northwest should not be exempt from this process. Instead, this property should be restored to its original RC1 zoning, which is consistent with the majority of properties along 48th Avenue Northwest. While the development permit initially received approval from the Development Authority, and that permit number is DP 2024-08425, it was initially approved, but then overturned by the Subdivision Development Appeal Board on August 26, 2025. I urge Council to review this file, SDA B 2025-0031. That was the Subdivision Development Appeal Board that completely overturned this. Allowing 8919 48th Avenue to retain a higher density of RCG designation would be both ethically and morally unjust to neighboring residents. Many of our community have invested significant emotional and financial resources to oppose the development of these two large buildings on this 50 by 120 lot, which totaled 20 bedrooms and 16 bathrooms on this historic stretch of Bonez, directly across from Bonez Park. To maintain the higher density zoning, despite the clear decision to overturn the development permit, undermines our efforts and disregards the community's concerns. I request for a full repeal of blanket upzoning and return to planned community-based growth. Secondly, I respectfully urge Council to amend the exemption criteria so that properties with refused or overturned development permits are included in the repeal. I also request that 8919 48th Avenue Northwest be returned to an RC1 zoning along with the other affected parcels. I lastly, if I still have another half a second here or a half a minute.
Yeah, please
There
finish
were
your
a few
sentence.
items. Okay, I just wanted to say that there were some very good points that other presenters brought up on how to change some of the communities, but I thank you for your time and regarding these important matters.
Thank you very much for being with us. Going over to Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't speak very often, but we've got 2 Ward 9ers in this panel, so I had to take a moment just to acknowledge you folks. Not so much a question, I suppose, but just wanted to say that I see you here, and I do appreciate that. We've got some LAPs coming forward across the ward, and I hope you will participate in that process. It's been a long week. We've got more to go, lots to hear. Quite a diverse set of opinions, and your presentation was excellent, both were. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Over to Councillor Chabot, please.
Thank you, Mayor Farkas. I'm not sure who to start with. I think I'll start with Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris, you're talking about how we should continue to build more housing and help to drive the prices down. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I've been on council for a number of years, and I've seen a lot of boom and bust cycles. And what I've seen is a lot of homes being built, especially in the downtown, when there was a boom, and then the boom stopped. People stopped coming in, but they couldn't stop building these high-rises, which ended up resulting in a glut, which means that the developers quit building because it wasn't profitable. So the concept of getting people to continue to build while the prices is going down is unrealistic. So any suggestions on how we can incentivize people to keep building when they're not going to make money?
Well, we should continue the building that we're doing right now.
But we aren't. It's the development industry that's building.
Yes.
Councillor Shaw, I'll just I'll ask you to let the presenter finish his thought.
So the current developments that are going through, that we do continue with those developments, and that there are other people that do want to plan other RCG homes, but haven't hit that limit or stopping, because obviously it will most likely be repealed. But we are expected to hit 2 million, and I think as more people continue to move, I don't think just seeing how, even with our boom-bust cycle, we're still going to get more and more people from other cities across the country who want to come to Calgary, because we're a growing city. While we will slow down housing, like right now the building that we have is just catching up to the housing we have now. We will need to continue to build more housing on top of that, and we are going to continue to grow. Maybe not at a consistent cycle, and we can edit more or less, but we need to consistently be adding, because right now we're just hitting the amount that we need. We need to continue to grow in that regard.
Yeah, well, if I could encourage people to continue to build, especially in a cycle where the market is in a downturn, that'd be great, because it would help. It would actually drive prices down, because there'd be a surplus of product. I think we're kind of at a break-even point based on what the real estate industry has said, some real estate experts, but I certainly see a lot of slowdown in the market right now as far as building, only because the profitability is down. So that's the challenge that we have, especially in the downtown core, because those larger structures, it's not an easy turn. It's like a big ship, right? You can't just stop it instantaneously. And so I guess the question is, how is blanket zoning retaining it? And how do you see that as contributing to the overall benefit of the city? If the developers can't make money, how can we incentivize maybe private owners for developing if the development industry themselves can't see how they can actually make a profit?
Well, it gives them the opportunity and the choice, which is what we will be ultimately taking away from those developers, to build what type of housing is applicable for those communities or areas. Right now, we're building lots of duplexes and fourplexes because we need those for our ever increasing. If we do hit a slowdown, then those community members may want to have the option to roll back to other options. So I think
single family,
say single family, but giving them the ability to make those choices in those areas. I think that we should have, if we are repealing, we should have discussions on how to continue to allow those type of homes to be built in certain areas. But we can't go back to just not. We need to have some changes into our housing. We can't go back to the way things were. But we need to continue in our process of continuing to build more homes.
Okay. Yeah, okay, thanks. Next question is for Mr. Not sure how to pronounce it, Zuromski? Zuromski. Is that right?
Jaromski, yeah, that's fine.
Jaromski. Thanks for being here. You were talking, I think, more about contextual sensitivity. Is kind of the gist of where you're going with some of the developments?
Yeah, discretionary use, yeah. Permitted use are not allowed to appeal.
Right. So is there issues, though, with regards to contextual sensitivity of some of these homes as compared to the rest of the homes along the block? Like, are they not of the same type? Is that one of the concerns? That you were showing some pretty large structures in your pictures, and you were saying it's not compatible, I guess maybe is the word you use.
Exactly. I'm saying they're incompatible, and their impact is too much, too adverse, too negative for the surrounding community.
Okay, compatible, and so the language we use in the land use bylaw is contextually sensitive. And so one of those things that's been changed recently is the front yard setback. Are you seeing that as an issue as well? Like how close to the street you can build a house compared to some of the older homes? Because some of the older homes are set further back, but the new rules under the current zoning is they can build up to within 3 meters of the curb on those homes, regardless of how far back the other home is. Is that a concern that you're seeing as well?
Councillor, if you're talking about the proposed RCG rule change?
No, what's currently in place.
I don't know all the...
like as far as the house being further forward than maybe the existing homes, is that a concern?
Probably. It's not the case of the development next to me. It has a whole line of other problems that I'm appealing. I don't know how much forward it is compared to the house next to me. Okay. It probably is because they're probably aligned about the same. That's not what I'm appealing or what I have a problem with, but I have lots of problem with the mass, height, size, orientation, right. Number of units, etc.
So I'm not sure, as far as this, what's before us right now, there was a bunch of recommendations that were added beyond the whole repeal, which made the massing less and the density lower. Have you looked at some of those amendments?
I looked at proposed RCG changes.
Yes.
There's a lot of them. Anything that is more moderate, smaller, is better than what's in place now. But like I said, in combination, the new set of proposed RCG rules needs to be studied by an industry expert, and it has to be public discussion, and then we have to be presented with models of what the developers will build to a maximum, because they will build to absolute maximum under the new rules, and whether it will be acceptable or not. So the public may not, by looking at what's published on the city website, say, oh, okay, this is much better, this is fine. There needs to be a study and testing and modeling of what will be possible if this becomes new RCG.
Is there, just wondering if there was any secret cameras hidden here, because we're actually talking about that very thing here during the break, that it may need to be tested with the development industry and do some modeling to see if it's viable, not just whether or not it can be built and whether it's sensitive to the community, but whether the development industry sees it as a viable product, because we certainly don't want to stop building if at all possible, but it has to be something that they can actually make work financially as well.
Totally.
Are you opposed to density generally, or just making sure that it's compatible with the adjacent?
I'm not opposed to density in general, but it needs to be done in a sensitive manner, and so it's compatible, sensitive, complementary, respects the physical the character of existing neighborhood buildings, etc. just like it says in the MDP.
Yes, the MDP, which is going to be updated. Okay, well, that's all the question I have for you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, please.
I will, Ms. Wong. You brought a perspective that we haven't heard a lot of yet, that you bought a single family in a single family neighborhood without the expectation that it would remain the same.
Correct.
So can you tell us why you had that expectation or why you didn't have the opposite expectation?
I can try. I think it's because I know what it's like to live with other people, and I think you always have to compromise. Like, not everything can always go your way, and I think it's just a life lesson maybe. And you can't control the people around you. You can maybe change your perspective, or try to change your perspective to enjoy your life.
And what about 5-10 years from now, when you've been in the neighborhood for longer, you've settled in for longer? Do you expect that you would want the pace of change to slow down, or that you would have different expectations?
I would say no.
No.
Change is exciting.
What about it is exciting for you?
To have to learn new things, to get to learn new things, to get to meet new people. Maybe that coffee shop will come into my neighborhood. That would be nice.
And so it sounds like your focus to me is on the people who might come into your neighborhood. Yeah, okay. Ms. McLean. I think you brought a similar perspective, which is interesting that it came on the same panel.
I know, what timing.
Perhaps your thoughts on the same thing.
Certainly, I have thoughts. I have been in Calgary since 2016. I've lived mostly in Ward 7. I was in Capitol Hill for quite a while, where I watched a lot of infills come in. So Capitol Hill, it has a lot of the old bungalows still. Some duplexes, that's what I ended up in. That was built around 2003. And then more infills started to come through kind of as I was there from 2019 through 2024 when we bought. Kind of watching the neighborhood develop through time, kind of to my cohort's point, having those coffee shops and having that structure around was really nice. And to be honest, moving over to where I am now, which is Southview, it doesn't have the population that supports that. Even the people who live in my neighborhood, they don't use the local shops. They don't really see it as being for them. They're pretty suburban, and they're I go to Walmart or I go to Costco, because there isn't a walkability. There isn't a density to support it. So I'd like to see more shops come in. I'd like to see that densification that I saw in Capitol Hill, so that it can complement places like Inglewood. Because when I was in Capitol Hill, we would walk the 4 kilometers down to Kensington just for something to do. Pass by the cool shops on the way, walk back up to Capitol Hill, go through the SAIT campus. It was a good time. And I'm up by Inglewood now, and sometimes I'm going through Inglewood every day on my commute. And yeah, some weekends it's just nice to be able to walk down the hill, and having the density in Southview really complements the density that's already kind of developing in Inglewood. Also seeing in Inglewood how I don't know the history of that neighborhood, but if you look at how some of the lot lines have fallen, it's crazy. I'm pretty sure some of those were handshake deals that happened back in 1930. It's wild. The way that people have figured out how to make space for each other, how to, build a community in sort of a unique way, where some houses have no backyard access, there is no back alley. They kind of have had to figure out, how do we get our garbage out together, So that's been pretty interesting. So, Southview is a really cute neighborhood. That's why we were attracted to it. We were also attracted to it because it's technically on the wrong side of Deerfoot, which made it affordable for us. I mean, maybe that's just a Calgary thing, wrong side of Deerfoot, ooh. But anyway, did that answer your question? I'll stop now.
No, yeah, it did, and perhaps something I should have asked Ms. Wong as well, but, you know, with the change, more cars, parking, garbage bins, shadows, what about those things?
Totally. I do respect that concern. So one of the things in my neighborhood, so this is the one that I have a hard time really empathizing with, because in my neighborhood, on our property, we have a 2-car oversized garage. The people who owned the house before us ran a business out of that garage. It's part of what attracted us to the property, because my husband is a carpenter, so it's a little bit of like work and play. So we have a 2-car oversized garage and a parking pad on our lot. Every house in the neighborhood has essentially that space. So for when I look at like our street parking is very sparse at the moment. So when I look at like what can my neighborhood take, I kind of look ahead into like what is Inglewood taking, what is Capitol Hill taking. When I lived in these neighborhoods, how did I adapt to that, right? Like we're a single car family, and that was part of the attraction to this neighborhood, is so that we could stay that way, because I can't afford $2,000 a month for a vehicle. Like it's ridiculous now. And we got to shed that dead weight, and that's been a huge relief. And part of that was our ability to afford a mortgage. And like I said, we were able to afford in the wrong side of Deerfoot, but it was still a detached home in Calgary, which is quite expensive. The mortgage does hurt a little, I won't lie. But shedding that car made that possible for us. And it gave me the kind of commute that I can keep my mental health over, because I can take the bus and I can ride my bike. And that's huge for me. But my husband, who has to have a vehicle, still has like the ability to do that. And so we can kind of enjoy that mix. So yeah, again, projecting ahead into like a Capitol Hill situation, Inglewood situation where we're getting more of that density, it's going to be a long time before that really impacts our lifestyle. And like we intend, like I said, my prospects are tied to the city. I've invested in this house. So that garage, that setup isn't going to change for us. Like as long as our neighbors are kind of, settled where they are, that's not going to change for them. So as these places come in, parking comes onto the street, there's 4 of us in 3 bungalows. There's miles of parking. Yeah.
You appreciate the availability of options.
I appreciate the availability for options, because I do understand, like, this city is very designed around cars. It's kind of a necessity of life here. So I would never say, like, ditch your cars, get over it, because we very much so need our car. We're skiers. But that flexibility of being able to, maybe half ditch your car, or for people who maybe fully want to ditch their car. That's what I really appreciate about like the density that I have lived with and hope to see kind of continue.
Thank you.
Cool.
That was great.
Thanks.
I am done.
All right, thank you. Just by show of hands, who do we have in the chamber with us that hasn't been called but is waiting to come and speak? All right, I see 3 hands. I'll ask you 3 to come up, and then I'm going to start. I'm going to ask again on the phone. Do we have 2 people who are on panels 1 through 67 that have been waiting for an opportunity?
Yes.
Sorry, what was your name, sir?
Richard Warren, panel 63.
All right, Richard on 63. Do we have anybody else on panels 1 through 67?
Yeah, I'm on 67.
Yeah.
Sorry, who was that just chimed in?
Yeah, I'm on 57.
What's your name, sir?
Tiago Araújo.
And you are on 67?
57.
Okay, let's start with the individuals who are in the chamber here with us. Please approach.
Gary Thompson, panel 81. Hello, Mayor and Council. I am here to say that one-size-fits-all zoning is a bad idea, which is why I'm opposed to a base land use district which only allows for single detached. Now, there is a notion that some people seem to have that everyone wants a single-family detached home. Perhaps many people have asked Santa for a mansion for Christmas. Me personally, I would like to see world peace and unicorns everywhere. Unfortunately, we don't live in Fantasyland. Santa isn't getting you a mansion. Urban sprawl is fiscally irresponsible, and I don't want to have to mow the lawn, which is why I'm in opposition to the motion to repeal the upzoning. Calgary is a young city, barely over a century old, and zoning is a young concept, barely younger than Calgary. If we want to be a sustainable city, we have quite a few examples to learn from. There are so many cities out there which have been thriving for centuries or even millennia. They've figured it out. They've figured out a built form which works for them, and they've had plenty of time to refine it. That built form they figured out is not nearly as pre-planned as we have. It's not without its flaws, and we can visit these cities across Asia and Europe, these ancient cities, and we can see what such a built form has survived in many cases to this day. It's quite often what we'd consider to be medium density, such as low-rise stacked townhouses and mixed-use courtyard apartments. I'm not even referring to row houses, as those are, in a global context, still considered low density. Urban sprawl, as we have it, is unsustainable. I know there are valid concerns about the impacts of the maximum allowable built forms under RCG. When the upzoning was proposed, it was, from my perspective, presented as an imperfect solution that is ultimately far better than doing nothing. And ultimately, I do believe it has done more good than harm. And now it's as if we've got this notion that because it's imperfect, it should be scrapped. So how many of you have campaigned on wanting a replacement, and why haven't any of us seen what that replacement's going to be yet? Going back to as close as possible to the way things were is, let's be clear, not a replacement strategy. It's a plugging your ears and pretending we aren't still facing an affordability crisis strategy. So tell us what your replacement strategy is, and if you don't have one, keep what you've got and work to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll ask our next speaker to please approach. Please let us know your name and your panel number.
My name is Jason New. I'm on panel 67.
Thank you.
I have a presentation too. Oh, there we go. So I had a similar presentation last time, so I'll go through it again. Hopefully some people take some uptick. Next slide, please. So you're giving this, I think, little cheat sheet, and with the rear setback at 7.5 meters. What it doesn't have on it is what's called the contextual depth rule on RC1, which is basically the average of your neighbors plus 4.6 meters, and that's how far deep you can build. So my proposal is to implement this in RC1. So if you go to the next slide, please. Or sorry, in RCG, not RC1. It's already in RC1. So if you look at this one, these guys look directly over their fence, right into the neighbor's backyard. This is hardly what one would call contextual. I'm all about built form. This is not contextual built form. Next slide, please. So without contextual depth, that's what you get. Here's another one. This is 5 units because the frontage on this one, I think, was 60 feet. So it got an extra unit in. So again, you know, you never see these pictures from the city. The city only ever shows you the front, never shows you the rear. So if you put in the contextual depth rule, the depth would be as far back as that. Next slide, please. So I would ask, oh, whoa, 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 whoa.
Oh no, the horse has left the barn. All right, we'll give you some time back there. Looks like we're.
Oh, there we go. So I would ask, take the RC1 and 2 rule and apply it to RCG. This will improve the mid-block. And over time, you'll get deeper buildings. Second, RCG uses the calculation of grade to be at the building, where RC1 was the parcel corners and the average. The problem with using it at the building is the developers build up the grade, which then gives an even higher amount. So I would ask you to use the RC1 rule for RCG. Next slide, please. Yes, this is one that others have noted. There's no limit to the number of units on a parcel for RCG. So big corner lots, you can have what, I don't know, 10, 15, 22 units. It's only by units per hectare. So I would say, and this results in developers in Boness aggregating lots and then doing essentially compounds. They have row house here, backyard suite here, garage suite here, and all sorts of things. So ask yourselves, how can these types of compounds be contextual to a neighborhood? Next slide, please. Parking, this one's unbelievable. In section 546, there's a table that lists the neighborhoods. If you're in some neighborhoods, you get 0.5, another one you get 1. Another person brought this up. This is like totally discriminatory. Like, why is that there? I don't care what number you pick, just pick one and make it the same for all neighborhoods. Please, if you do nothing, please do that. Next slide, please. 347.3 was taken out when permitted use was taken out. These have things about maximum height above grade, that you can have the first floor height so you're not looking over your neighbors, facade differences, now that's all gone. This added some interest and limited some things. Please put those back on. If the city doesn't think it's going to work, they can relax it. But if it's not there, they just never get adhered to. Next slide, please. This one's always a good one. This is the amenity areas. So when you put in RCG, the city wanted discretion. Well, this is what you get with discretion. You get amenity area right on front of the sidewalk. You get amenity area over top of a window well. Like, what are you going to do with that? This is ridiculous. Please put in some rules around amenity areas. Next slide, please. Parcel coverage. If you have a RC1, RC2, you get 45%. If you're building a townhouse, you get 60%. Like, why? Make everybody the same parcel coverage. Make it contextual. Everybody gets the same thing. Maybe that means 3 units instead of 4 units, but at least everybody has the same built form, everybody has the same rules. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is some comments on some other things. Some have called $500 a day for delays. So just so you know, if some of you haven't done the math on a $600,000 borrowed amount from a bank, that is a 30% interest rate. On 700K unit, that's a 26% interest rate. I ask you to take that number with a grain of salt. Delays, when built in, only impact you through the first set of delays. Ask any business owner. If you plan it, and then you execute. So if I'm waiting for 6 months, I already planned my last one 6 months ago, so now I'm building that one. So that is only a one-time hit for any administrative issues on a delay. LAPs, ARPs. So the planning department, in my view, should adhere to the number of stories dictated in these plans. In 2018, Boness went through the Main Streets update of its ARP. A developer in 2020 proposed a 6-story development where there's only 4 stories permitted. On the ARP map, it was actually there. The city's response, development complies with the ARP with a small change to the ARP. If you need to change the zoning in the ARP in order to comply to it, then no, it does not comply to the ARP. I would please ask you to direct administration to adhere to this very simple rule. If you have to change a policy, you cannot adhere to that policy.
Thank you, sir. You're just at time. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll ask our next speaker in person to please approach her.
Hello, Mayor and members of Council. Thank you for taking the time today. My name is Jeff, and I live in Ward 11. I am speaking to support the proposed motion to repeal blanket rezoning. I'd also like to point out that I'm a millennial and maybe one of the fewer ones that you've heard speak out and say that they don't want to have blanket rezoning. I spoke against blanket rezoning during last year's hearings, where I urged Council to take a more balanced and targeted approach. At that time, I emphasized that a one-size-fits-all policy does not reflect the diversity of Calgary's neighborhoods. I also suggested alternative ways to increase housing supply, including stronger community engagement, accelerated development on city-owned lands, and faster completion of local area plans. One of the most commonly cited arguments for maintaining blanket rezoning is that it improves housing affordability by increasing supply. While this theory can hold true in a closed system, Calgary's housing market is not a closed system. In practice, what we are seeing is the loss of older, relatively affordable homes, often in the $500,000 range, give or take, which are purchased, demolished, and replaced with duplexes or row houses that sell for significantly higher prices. In many cases, a single $500,000 home is replaced by units selling close to $1 million per side. This does not improve affordability for most Calgarians. Conversely, this raises the entry price within established communities. I would also like to speak to the importance of proper planning. When decisions are rushed, the likelihood of unintended consequences increases. In many ways, blanket rezoning feels like a policy implemented without sufficient planning, and we are already seeing some of the impacts. A clear example is the parking policy. Current zoning change removed minimum parking requirements. At the same time, publicly available data from the City of Calgary shows that the number of registered vehicles per 1,000 residents has been steadily increasing year over year. Simply put, Calgary has more vehicles today than it did last year, yet zoning changes now require as little as half a stall per unit and none at all for some basement suites. And this is what the other panels were saying, what you call dwellings, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe I have the basement suites and carriage house terminology wrong, but nonetheless, you know what I'm talking about. This disconnect puts real pressure on neighborhood streets and was not meaningfully addressed before implementation. Other issues, such as schools being already over capacity, like not all, but just certain ones, have not been thought of. As another gentleman previously mentioned today, what about the electrical system? Neighborhoods are designed for, I think he said 22 people per hectare, and that their one electrical box only supplies, he said, 14 units. How are we going to address the issues of infrastructure? And are we ready to just blanketly say we can build without thinking about all these other things that are important to consider? There was also an interesting article in CTV News today. The article references a report from Century 21, and I'm just going to give some quotes here. More than half of Canadians say that they are not living in their ideal home. The Canadian dream of owning a moderate standalone house with a few bedrooms for a family and a yard is as relevant today as it has ever been. This perhaps speaks to why many moderately priced communities just outside metro centers are experiencing a real estate boom. Less than half of respondents to their survey, which was 45%, said that the current living situation is ideal or close to it, which was the 23%. Of the 55% not living in their ideal home, 63% of that 55% desired more space. Although single-family and semi-detached homes were viewed as ideal by 65% of respondents, only 58% reported living in a detached home. So taking those statements and facts from that article there, not only does blanket rezoning take away house supply in the 500K range, which are single family, and replaces it with $1 million side-by-sides or row houses, it's moving away from what the majority of Canadians are looking for. This leads to a broader question. Was blanket rezoning a well-considered policy? From my perspective, it has not achieved its stated goal of improving affordability. It lacked broad public support during the first hearings. Many members of council were elected on commitments to revisit and possibly repeal it. Based on this, I believe the answer to my question is no. Calgary is clearly passionate about this issue, as evidenced by the level of public engagement, and I think everyone here can agree with that statement. My request for you guys today is that you give residents the opportunity to work with you collaboratively by supporting this motion and move towards a more collaborative, community-based approach of growth through accelerating local area plans. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff. Would you just mind confirming you're on panel 71?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I was.
May I please have a motion to suspend the procedure by law to allow for us to conclude this panel? Moved by Deputy Mayor Schmidt, second by Councillor Kelly. All in favor? Any opposed to that? All right, that motion is carried. We will conclude this panel. Off to Richard, panel 63. You're up next.
Hi, it's Richard Warren, panel 63. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak on this matter. I seek that the blanket rezoning bylaw be fully repealed and that prior existing zoning definitions be restored. It's my belief that a more intelligent, effective strategy can be devised. My wife and I are longtime Ward 11 residents within the southwest community of Lakeview. We very deliberately sought out and invested in a district with features and qualities most typically found in a predominantly RC1 zone district. Lakeview also includes a small pocket of former RC2 development, as well as a trio of apartment and condominium configurations. We paid a premium relative to newer community options. We chose an older property with the obligatory smaller bedrooms, lower ceiling heights, and more likely need for improvement and renovation over new neighborhood options. Neighborhood type was more critical to us than newer home stock. Back then, we too had an intimidating mortgage with rates exceeding those of today. We didn't exactly secure our home with ease or luck. We have applied decades of investment and toil to our home. We now have young adult daughters. We are not change-averse curmudgeons, nor do we lack compassion for others, nor are we illogical or inflexible. We want to see home ownership become less daunting for our daughters. We do not think that the blanket scheme is the correct route towards that. In our community, we have seen the price floor rise as developers outcompete other prospective buyers for lots. We are witnessing early signs of gentrification. Combined with that, we are being threatened by RCG development, particularly in the form of 8-plex builds on 50-foot lots next to single-family dwellings. Imagine developers wanting to maximize builds on available lots with financing incentives. An 8-unit dwelling in place in place of a single-family dwelling is the antithesis of gentle densification, the tagline of this upzoning scheme. The C for contextual is unfortunately laughable in these examples. These development proposals are catalyzing a domino effect of adjacent owners selling, leading to likely potential for even more concentrated pockets should subsequent builds of increased density ensue. I'd like to emphasize the run on RCG applications since the fall election. Given the incredible degree of opposition leading to the repeal motion, the prospect of 8-unit road designs on former RC1 parcels is adding insult to injury. Better management would have seen a pause or a moratorium of sorts applied. Among the pending 8-plex development proposals in Lakeview, 2 are directly opposite each other, separated by alley only. 2 single-family units to become 16. A pattern is showing of homes most adjacent to these proposals being put up for sale. One next-door property in this twin scenario is already sold, the second DP having only come down the pipe this week. There will be little surprise should the home directly next door to this one also move to market. I implore the city to give very strong consideration to the deluge of concerns and objections to such applications. Please move to mitigate such irreversible damage to community environments such as ours. Harmful impact is disproportionate. At city level, certain communities are hit harder as they hold the right recipe of lot sizes, home ages, values, and so on. At block level, the neighbors nearest these incompatible builds obviously suffer greater impact than those separated by greater distances. I've heard repeatedly of late a rationalizing of row homes on corner lots. Pretty tough for other existing corner lot owners and those first few lots up the block. These are abbreviated views here, as 5 minutes is a challenge. I too share many additional concerns, including parking congestion, traffic, overmassing, shadowing, privacy, reduction of tree canopy and other greenery, etc. I know that these elements have been addressed quite keenly by others repeatedly. I also won't deep dive on how I feel about being vilified for having passion for my neighborhood, or how trivialized my concerns seem to be by many advocating for the blanket method. Please do the correct thing in carrying out a full repeal of the blanket rezoning bylaw and reinstituting the prior zoning definitions. Let's then move forward with a more balanced, intelligent, collaborative strategy to address density outcomes.
Thank you so much. You're just at time. To round off this panel, we're going to go to Tiago from panel 57, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the Council. I am opposed to the repealing of blanket rezoning, and the reason is very simple, because I think this policy is a step in the right direction. I'm actually very excited with the blanket rezoning because I'm seeing rents going down. I'm seeing houses being built all around me. I live on West Hillhurst on Ward 7, and it's just amazing to be able to live here in a small building, seeing other small buildings being constructed here. And if you ask me 3 or 4 years ago, at the height of the housing crisis, with rents going up by 20, 30%, if you ask me, hey, what do you think is going to happen in 2026? And you said maybe the rents will go down, I would say, you're crazy. That would not happen. But it's happening, and it's quite amazing. And is this policy perfect? No. There are problems, but it's the step in the right direction. We are going in the right direction, and I think we need the leadership and the commitment to make those changes so we can have affordable housing for more people in my community. And I think the most important thing is to make sure that we have diverse house offerings in communities in the center of Calgary and stop with the urban sprawling because it's unsustainable. I think that having more people living close to downtown, being able to walk to work or bike to work or take transit is a better quality for life here. And this policy is helping us move in that direction. So I think that we should keep blanket rezoning and we should tweak the policies in order to answer the questions that other peers have left here. And they say that they have some reservations about it. We can tweak the policy to answer those questions to other people, but we shouldn't repeal it. We should keep going in the right direction so that we can have a more affordable city that works for our communities, that is diverse, it's vibrant, it's, you know, it's a better city in general. So thank you so much for listening to me. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Thiago. I will go to Councillor Johnston, please, for questions for the panel.
My question is for Mr. Jeffrey.
Hey.
Sorry, I just wanted to know if you were for or against the repeal of it.
I am for repealing blanket rezoning. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chabot, please.
My question is for Mr. Thompson. Oh, shoot, I think I picked the wrong guy. No, I'm kidding.
Be nice, Councillor Chabot, be nice.
I am being nice. So anyways, you had a very interesting presentation. I give you kudos for that. You talked about how we're a young city, right? How other cities have evolved much differently. Of course, then you also know that the city was designed pretty much from a car-centric perspective.
Yeah.
So that's part of the challenge in moving forward, because we have a city that was designed with really wide streets and very sparse settings. So I guess the question from my perspective and what you would think is what's the best path forward to fix the bad communities that were developed in the 50s to 70s that were designed around 3 to 4 units per acre, single purpose type homes, to evolve rather than trying to do it from a revolutionary perspective, because that's what we're mostly getting the pushback from.
Yeah, so you do need to take a holistic approach. You know as well as I do that the street manual is not part of the land use bylaw. So if you are talking about the streetscape, that is separate to what this hearing is about, but I do believe that there needs to be a lot of reform there. Personally, I don't own a car. I've spoken to City Council before, and that's one of my talking points is a lot of us don't. People have this notion that this is a car-centric city because it is, and it's difficult to choose the lifestyle that I did, but I don't want it to be difficult.
Yeah. Anyways, you know what, I thought you had a great presentation, just so you know. I'm just curious, is this something you're pursuing or something you do for a living?
I work at the library.
Oh, so you're not pursuing anything in planning or?
Nope.
Okay. You play SimCity?
What?
Sorry. No, you had some very, very good ideas, and that's the reason I'm asking the question. So
Appreciate it. I'm on like 3 boards. I have ways to kill time.
okay, thanks for being here and giving us your perspective. Next question would be for, is it?
For sure, yeah.
Sorry, what's your name?
Mr. New, yeah.
Yes. Anyways, yeah, you had some very interesting perspectives. So is this what you do for a living, or are you into?
No, I was on one of the community association planning development boards, plus I assist people with appeals. Yeah. So.
Yeah, you had some interesting concepts in regards to setbacks and contextual sensitivity, and of course, we hear that a lot. And parking obviously is a big issue. So you don't think we should look at parking relaxations in some of those communities that are closer to the center and have more access to other forms of transportation or public transit?
No, because if you look at Boness, for instance, they had the yellow line that got taken out, wasn't there. I don't think there's any better transit 20 blocks in Boness than it is up in Signal Hill, for instance, right? In terms of transit. So I think the parking rules should be the same everywhere.
Do you think there's any rationale with looking at reduced parking requirements in any areas, like right next to transit or something like that?
Yeah, to me, I don't really know what's the right number. To me, the number should be fair.
Okay, fair, but that doesn't mean that they all have to be exactly the same, though, does it?
To me, fair is if I want to build a 4+4 in Signal Hill, I need, if the rule is one per unit, then I need, 4 stalls. I don't get to go build in Boness and only need 0.5. That is my thought. Why do I only need 0.5 in Boness, but then I go up the hill and now I need 1, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand your perspective, and I've always pushed for 1-to-1, but I think there's exceptions to every rule.
True. If you want to make, for instance, around TOD and say that's, 0.5, I'm fine with that. And I think that's irrespective of the neighborhood, right? That's indiscriminatory on the neighborhood. That is purely on what the transit is and what it is, right? So what I object to is a blanket per neighborhood. If you're in this little table there, then you only require, 0.5. If you're everywhere else, you get 1.
So which leads me to the next question. Then that means, sort of, if I can read into it, you're not opposed to higher density if it's done appropriately and sensitively? Is that?
Yeah, in my view, if you had, so RC1 also has a contextual height rule, which I'll give administration some credit for. In this thing that I showed, they show the RC1 as 8.6 to 10 meters. Where last time, I asked them to put that on there for council. They refused to do it and only put in 10 meters. Now they put 8.6 to 10. 8.6 is a contextual height rule in RC1, RC2. You take the average of your 2 neighbors, you have 1.5 meters, you get a minimum of 8.6, plus you get 1 meter for grade, so you get 9.6. If you put that rule in and contextual depth rule in for RCG, then people have to build within that box, and over time, you'll get bigger and bigger units. So what you'll get is probably, you heard about the triplexes. You'll probably get triplexes earlier on. And then eventually you'll get fourplexes. But that's density and context over time.
Okay. Thanks for being here once again.
Thank you.
Thanks. Back to Councillor Johnston, please.
Sorry, question for Jason, Mr. New. Sorry, were you for or against what's at hand?
The repeal?
Yeah.
In my view, you should repeal it and then take another crack at RCG. And in my view, what you put forward for RCG, I was blindsided by it. It's like, what? They're doing something with RCG? So when I have to fill out the vote when I signed up for here, what am I signing up for and against? For both? For one? For the other? You don't know because you put both of those on there. So I'm in
Very
favor.
good point. Sorry.
Right? I'm in favor of the repeal. I'm not in favor of the 20-meter rule on the RCG. I think that will create a bit of if you're the third unit in, they can build this thing, and then the guy in the middle or the two is like, now I get this thing in the middle. I looked yesterday at how many blocks only have 10 or less houses. So now you're going to have, what, the first 3 with these townhouses, and then you're going to have 4 in the middle. And there's some blocks that only have 5 parcels, so now you're going to have, what, 4 and then 1 in the middle?
Right.
You know,
Sorry, would you rather have us had split those up to do two different hearings? Okay.
Yeah, and in my view, you should take the RCG amendments back to learn what happened from HGO. HGO only had input from developers, and it came to committee passed it, council passed it, and nobody had any input into it. Take the RCG back to community associations, have public engagement on it, and this gentleman before had the best idea on the planet. Show us what gets built, show the backyards, not just the front yards. Please, if anything, show the backyards and the front yards, put those models in, show it to people, and get their feedback.
Right. So do you find it unfair the way it was posted?
Yeah, like I didn't know about it till, I don't know, a week ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much there.
Oh, just one other thing there. To me, the engagement's a little interesting, right? You get engagement, you get feedback, and then administration comes up with these rule changes. But those rule changes never go back to the public, back to those same information sessions, right? That's what I think, if you want to make one biggest improvement here, that's the improvement. Go get all your stuff, go get some proposals, then show whatever the proposal actually means, and those rules, and then go back, right?
Okay.
Not 2 points.
Yeah, no, that's very important. I do appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, this concludes the panel. Before I bang the gavel here, colleagues, I think we got within just only 2 people on the phone line. So tonight and last night, we're very, very close to exhausting the amount of people on hand. What I'm going to suggest is perhaps we can just telegraph throughout tomorrow that tomorrow is potentially the last day of the public hearing. We have an incredibly high attrition rate. There's a lot of names that we're calling that aren't necessarily bums and seats or people are available. So if there's anybody tuned in and watching, I just want to make clear that tomorrow might be the only opportunity to speak. If we do run out of people, we are somewhat obligated to close that public hearing. So again, encourage as many people to participate tomorrow, and if I'll be certainly suggesting tomorrow if we're then within striking distance of being able to conclude the public hearing, that my recommendation will be to complete tomorrow if we can. So again, we don't want to limit the ability to hear from the public, but we can't just continue the public hearing perpetually. Yeah, Councillor Chabot, please.
Yeah, no, just procedurally, and insofar as how the proceedings have been going, there's been a lot of input and a lot of suggestions about different things, including some of the recommendations that are before us. So is the intent now, if I may ask, from this group, and maybe you can help to lead that discussion, for us to complete the public hearing and go directly into the motions, or?
Oh, certainly not. My sense, Councillor Chabot, is we need significant amount of time, perhaps several days, to be able to chew on the recommendations, understand the maps, the recommendations, prepare bylaws, or bylaw amendments rather, have them amended, or the amendments vetted. So my perfect world perhaps is we could conclude the public hearing tomorrow and seek to have a decision and debate next week, or even perhaps after the Easter break, depending on the amount of time that may be necessary to be comfortable to do so. So it's possible that we go into Monday or Wednesday next week for the public hearing. And if that's the case, certainly after Easter would make sense.
Okay, thanks. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're not at a point yet to make that decision, but.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because, you know, some people might hope that we can drag it on further and maybe get a chance to have some more input, but I certainly think we're all interested in seeing the public portion of this conclude, but I'm not sure that we necessarily want to get into all of the potential amendments immediately following. It's been a long week.
What I'll also offer is I think at least, I'm going to say 72 hours is necessary because we've received, I think, 600 letters and correspondence since the public hearing was opened. And in good faith, I personally need the time as a member of council to review those materials. I don't know about you, but I'm not going home tonight and cracking open the email. I'm probably going to bed pretty soon. So.
This is my hockey team's last game tonight, so I may have to stop by and say hi to the guys.
All right, Councillor Johnston, please.
Yeah, so sorry. At the conclusion of this public hearing, are we going to be voting immediately after debate on the main motion?
I was asked an answer to Councillor Chabot, but what else?
Not really, though.
So maybe just to recap, I was suggesting to Councillor Chabot
Oh,
that
sorry,
we need...
but are we going into debate right after?
No, can I please have the floor to answer your question, Councillor Johnston?
Yes.
Okay, so as mentioned to Councillor Chabot, I think we need significant amount of time. I'd suggest 72 hours at least between the closing of the public hearing and the ability to go into questions of clarification, debate, potential amendments. It's going to be a significant amount of proceedings. I think 72 hours is minimum necessary to be able to read the correspondence. Like, we have many hundreds and hundreds of letters and emails that have been provided, and I think in good faith as governors, we need the time to actually read through those correspondence. Another piece is there's probably quite a bit of technicality to what's before us, so I think being equipped, having potential amendments vetted by administration, read through, I think that from a governance standpoint, we may end tomorrow. That's a possibility if we exhaust the amount of people on hand. It is possible we go Monday and Wednesday next week. And if that's the case, then I think certainly after Easter would be the decision.
Okay. So should I challenge that now or at the end of the proceedings?
There's nothing to challenge, Councillor Johnston. I'm just informing council as far as where we're at in terms of the panel management. Is there something specific I said you're looking to challenge?
Yeah, waiting 3 or 4 days after the conclusion.
Well, we'll have that decision at the time of the closing of the public hearing. We'll recess to a specific time and a date. So that'll be amendable. So if you want to make your argument at that point, that would be the appropriate point.
Okay.
Councillor Kelly, please.
Yeah, I think you just answered it in your response to Councillor Johnston. I just wanted to confirm that the questions for admin, the questions of clarifications, if those would be before or after the break.
I think it should start, rather the break should start immediately after the public hearing is what I'd suggest. And then we come in a couple days after equipped with those questions of clarification. It's quite possible the portion of our meeting that covers the questions of clarification, the movement of the recommendations, the readings of the bylaw, the amendments, that potentially in itself could be several days. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Good night, all.
All right, I'm banging the gavel. See you at 9:30 tomorrow.